Hello people, my name is Jan. I'm an artist. I like to make nerdy fantasy role-playing game stuff. My website is Online-Tabletop.com, and if you also like nerdy fantasy role-playing game stuff, you can find a lot of cool stuff there. I also sell my drawings on a website called Roll20. It's an online tabletop simulator where you can play games like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, and you can buy my stuff here. This is my name over here, Jan. We're gonna focus on making some cool brushes in Photoshop. The brushes we are gonna make will add depth and texture to your drawings. I use these for drawing creatures, but also a lot for doing cartography. I love drawing maps, and sometimes I want to get some cool brushes with cool textures to add depth. We will only be using stuff that's found within Photoshop. So I won't be using any external textures or anything like that, just the core stuff. And I will show you how to make some cool brushes. To get started, I'm gonna make a new layer. And I'm gonna fill it with 50% gray. I don't want pattern, yeah, there we go, 50% gray. And I will give it a name and lock it. Next up, I will start working on some brushes, but I also want to make sure that the brushes have some 3D effect. So let me turn this guy off. To make this happen, I will just add a black and draw in here. And what I want to do is blending options and get rid of all the fill opacity. So this will mean that none of the actual drawing will be visible, but all of the layer styles will be visible. And what I want is bevel and emboss. And I want a depth of 2, and we can play around with this later. This is the place where you will actually see the 3D effect, the depth of the drawings. So we'll just keep this. And what I also like to do is just fill this layer with a color. Doesn't matter because the fill opacity is on 0. And add a layer mask. This way I don't have to use an eraser, but can use my whites and blacks to add or erase the texture. So this is the, let's call it the depth layer. And I will show how it works later. You can lock this guy for now. And a new layer. So I will make a map for this folder. This is this folder we will call depth, and this layer will be the brush creation layer. Okay, so the most simple thing to get some form of texture is by using different clouds and clouds and different clouds. So this will give some random clouds on the map, and if we do different clouds, we will get some more randomness. And we can already use these for creating cool brushes. But I want to get some more difference between the individual little islands of clouds with my levels a little. There we go. So we get some interesting forms already. Next up, I will take a soft round brush. Actually separate it. So for example, we've got a interesting shape here. Let's put opacity on 20, so some of the detail around the edge will be preserved. I'm using an Intuos drawing tablet if you wonder. There we go. And now I will create a new layer out of all the merged layers. And I can hide this for a second. Next I will invert the layer and draw a circle around the thing that I actually want, which is this. I will copy merged, paste, and hide this one. So this will be our first brush. I'm gonna make sure that around it it's perfectly white, else you get some edging, some edge lines, which I don't like too much. Some sharp edges that don't look nice on the brushes. So, alright, erase, 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 or add white I mean. And then we can select this and go to define brush preset, and we will call this brush test 1. So now when we start to draw, I can delete this. When we start to draw, we've got this brush test 1. Let me switch to black, which looks like this. It's not too good, so we want to add some cool effects to it, and we'll do it at this tool brush panel options. So what I want to do is I want to add some spacing. Let's see, is there anything else that I want to do here? Nope. I want to add some shape dynamics. I like to use pen pressure on my tablet a little bit, so that means that each time it will differ a little bit in the size, which is cool. And angle jitter is something we really want, so it goes on a different angle each time. And roundness jitter a little bit, not too much. So now if we draw, you can see it's already a lot more random. I'm gonna go back to spacing and make it a little bit more closer the spacing closer to each other. So now we get this, which already gives some cool texture. You can see that the pen pressure is working. I'm drawing really soft and really hard now, so that's cool. We can add some scattering if you want. So, but the thing with scattering is I like it sometimes when I do rough patches, but if I don't do rough areas, it gives me a lot less control on where exactly the brush stroke will be, because it's randomized a little. So I'm not gonna do that too much. I will do maybe 20%. And I like both axes. And we can add some count. And maybe some jittering in the count. Let's see now. Look, this is already pretty cool. Let's go into the other stuff later. For now, this will be our first brush. I will put opacity on 20%, and then you can just build up a cool cloudy brush, right? I kind of like it. But to see it in full effect, what I do for map making is I like to use this 3D effect with Bevel and Emboss, and I will show you how it works. Let's see. We want to make this a little bit more extreme. No softening. Size can be 1, 2. We have to play around with this a little. I wish I knew exactly like what effect it would have if I would change a little bit of these settings, but I have a global idea of what it does, and still a lot of these things I do by feeling. But the bevel and emboss basically makes things pop up. So you can use inner bevel, which does the inner circle brush stroke, outer bevel, which does the outer circle of the brush stroke, emboss, I'm not exactly sure what it does. Pillow emboss is kind of funny because it kind of makes a pillow, so it goes down and up again. And stroke emboss, I'm not exactly sure. Usually I use inner bevel for my detail work. You can also say chisel hard, chisel soft. So chisel hard doesn't show anything, but it will if I increase the depth. So you have to find a sweet spot for your resolution and your image resolution and yeah, the size of your brush. So no softening. This looks kind of cool. So you can see this could be a hill or something protruding upwards. So now if we start drawing with 20 opacity, you can see that we're getting some cool texture effects. And especially if you layer this, like you start with a really low opacity and you make it come up slightly, it can give a pretty cool texture effect. I like it. Do you like it? I like it. So let's copy this layer and call this brush 1 and lock it so I can show it as final result later. Let's start here. Oh, make sure I'm working in a mask. Wait, let me do it differently. I will start with 100%, bum, and then I will add a 50% and a 20%, and 1%. And then down here I will show off a little layered effect. So this is brush 1, lock it, make it disappear. So that's kind of cool. What we want to do is we want to save the brush as a tool preset. You can save it as a brush, but you can also save it as a tool preset. The difference between the brush and the tool preset is that the tool preset keeps some more information, such as blending mode, opacity, and flow. And I think also some things from this menu. I'm not exactly sure. I think the brush also remembers that. But I like to use tool presets instead of brush presets because it automatically goes to the correct opacity, flow, and blending mode as well. So we called it brush 1. Cool. It's a first brush. Let's go to our second brush. So now we've got this this brush, which we could also use to make a new brush altogether, but I won't do that just yet. Let's play a little bit more with the clouds we have. So if you do more difference clouds, you get similar effects. It will add some more detail. You can also invert and do difference clouds. And the more you do, it will start to appear, which I like. So let's put on the levels again. and play around a little bit so we can separate some of these brushes. So I'm starting to like the look of this thing over here. So I'll make I press Ctrl Shift Alt E to make a merged copy of all of it. And grab this guy, copy, paste, hide this stuff. This guy, Ctrl I, and make sure that everything is beautifully white around it, so we don't get any sharp, hard edges. If you want to check if you have sharp edges, you can also add levels, make a clipping mask so it only takes that one, and then you can play around with this a little bit to see if there's any details still there that you didn't see with your bare eyes. So for example, here I see some stuff that I didn't see with my bare eyes. Clean it up. So now this brush is pretty clean. Okay, let's get rid of the levels. Drag a, or you can also just Ctrl click it. I'm just going to drag a square around it and define brush preset. Brush test. Oh, brush test 2. Cool. So let's go back on our playing layer and see what we got. Same story with the other one. Out of the how do you call it? From the start it doesn't look so pretty, so you have to play with the settings a little bit more. So we'll add some spacing, some shape dynamics, size jitter a little bit, some angle jitter, some roundness jitter, not too much because I think it looks really weird if it's skewed too much. Maybe a little bit of scattering. Count jitter. And we can add something. We can add, for example, opacity jitter, which makes each little tip differ in opacity, like this. So let's put it on 40. You can also use pen pressure to do that, which is kind of cool, but we'll do it like this for now. Let's put our opacity on, our brush opacity on 20 and test it out. Kind of cool, kind of like it, kind of don't. What I don't like is that it scatters too much. And it can be a bit closer. Let's try again. Yeah, now I've got some more control. And I don't think I've added pen pressure. I want to add pen pressure. Oh, I did. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Then I just want to make the brush a little bit smaller. Kind of like it. So let's test it out on our 3D layer. Go back to white and see what it does. I think it's pretty cool. Let's edit and call it brush 2. And let's make sure that it's not super the same. So this is brush 1 next to it. It's more soft, less sharp edges. I kind of like it. One thing that I didn't show you yet, so let's go to back to brush 2. Because we're working in a layer, you can switch between white and black. So black erases. So let's go to black, and then you can pretty interesting. For example, I can just add like this, and erase over it to make sure that the edge really pops out like this. And then of course you add some more detail here. Make it slowly fade into the rest of the landscape. But this could also be a scar or something else that you need texture for. Pretty cool. And what really changes the whole thing is the bevel and emboss itself. So right now we have smooth. We can separate it, change it to chisel hard, which makes it more like really fine details. Which is kind of cool. You can change the direction, which really changes stuff. So you can see that this adds some difference. So you can play with that a lot as well. For now we'll keep it like this, just soft, which makes it also a lot sharper. We can decrease the depth, decrease the size, which makes it more fine. So you can do all kinds of cool stuff with this itself. The contour, which you can change, which makes it look really different. But there are all different ways to add cool textures. You can also add contour here, which gives it a little bit more depth. I'm not exactly sure how this works, but it basically kind of adds an extra bevel and emboss on top, which is cool. And then we have got some more texture here. You can use this spongy thing, all kinds of things. What also is kind of cool is that if you've got one of these next to the other one, so we've got duplicated the layer, and let's call this depth down, and let's say you want to make some valleys and things like that. You can just go to blending options, and instead of up you say down, and then when you brush in you will actually brush downwards, like you're having a valley or something. You can use this to make cool scars or gaps in your texture, or for your maps to make valleys and what do you call them? Those holes that meteorite makes, craters. You can make craters. Cool. I kind of like the chisel soft though, instead of the smooth. Just gives it some more detail. If you look like this, you see, add some more detail. So that's kind of cool. So that's brush 2. Let's copy this guy and show it off for the end result. So copy, what's this? This can go. Copy. Brush 2. And let's show it off. So this is the normal. This is the 50%. This is the 20%, and this is just what the effect can create. Alright, lock it, make it disappear. So this was all kind of basic and simple. Next up, I want to play around and get a little bit more creative. So these kind of brushes are cool for hills, for mountains and things like that, but I want to get a little bit more crazy. What I want to do is I want to take this layer that we had previously. We can try to find some filters. So let's go to filter gallery and see what kind of stuff they do. So this could be kind of cool, for example, much more. These all give kind of cool effects to the texture that we already have. So I kind of like this watercolor effect. So press OK. And now when we make a brush out of this, things will be a lot more different. So let's find a cool thing. We can also use feather a little bit. Let's make feather 15. So when you blurs the edges a little bit. So there we go. So we invert this. Let me get this first brush to clean this up a little. I can check with my levels if things are okay. No hard edges. No, this should be fine. So let's hide these guys, by the way. Keep our layers clean. So here we've got a new brush. Define brush preset. 3. Let's see what it does. So from the start, it doesn't look pretty. What? Oh, it's not too bad. But let's add some dynamics like we always do. This should already be a lot cooler. Yeah, look at this. I like this a lot. Let's play around a little bit more. A little bit of roundness jitter. Some scattering. Tiny bit. Add a count. Make the spacing a bit bigger. Let's see. Make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, I like this a lot. This is like a little bit distorted, eroded texture, like a rust on a metal plate or something like that, which I think is really cool, especially if we layer it with opacity. It will give us some really cool, scratchy, eroded effect. I like it. Let's do the opacity jitter a little bit and see what it does on our depth layer. Kind of looks cooler as just a normal brush than as a 3D like Bevel and Emboss brush. But we can copy this guy and play around with Bevel and Emboss a little bit to see if that makes any difference. kind of like the way it goes down, so you can give your flat landmass a little bit of detail, or you add some imperfections to your textures on creatures, things like that. Let's remove global light. Okay, turn it on. Maybe play with the contour a little bit. So you can also make your own contour. You can also remove more of the highlights, or remove more of the shadows. So this will be more of a glossy surface. This will be more of a matte surface, which is kind of cool. But we'll keep it brush 3, and let's drag it all the way up. And example, so this is the 0% one, 100% one, this is the 50% one, this is 20% one, and this is the effect layered, which is kind of cool by itself. Brush 3. Cool. What I want to do next is I want to do something cool. I want to combine 3 brushes. Use the brushes that we just made to make a whole new one. So let's start off with brush 1. And don't make it too round. Try to make some interesting shapes in there. And also don't make it too big, because if you make it too big, you will have to make your brush smaller and you will lose the detail. So let's try to make it small and cool. I kind of like this. Let's take brush 2. And take brush 3. And take brush 1 again to soften it up a little. Cool. So now we've got a whole new brush made out of 3 brushes that we've already had. We will do the same thing as we did before. Define the brush preset. Oh, I didn't give it a cool name. Let's give it a cool name. Brush 4. And next up, we will just play around with the settings. Let's leave scattering off for this one. And let's see what this does. Pretty cool, it's kind of oily. But there's some hard spots in there. I would actually like to have some more of those hard spots. Like the one that I mean is like some chunkies, some chunks that start to exist like here. I kind of like those. But let's see what it does on the 3D layer. Oh, look, beautiful. I like this a lot. This is the type of brush that I would really use in my map making. Oh, I love this so much. and it has a lot of control, which I like as well. So scattering, it just goes all over the place, but with without the scattering, you can just really detailed put something where you want it. So much control. This is an awesome brush. I will definitely add this to my own collection. So this is brush 4, and let's call it awesome. The example, 50%, 20%, and cool. This effect I couldn't have had by just creating a brush out of scratch. It's really cool because I combined those things, and that just worked really well. Let me also save this thing. Brushes tutorial, so I can find it. No, I don't want to save it as PDF. I want to save it as PSD. Brushes tutorial. So if anything isn't clear, just ask me a question in the comments, and I will be sure to get back to you about those things. But before we do that, I want to show you something else. The texture tab, and that can add a lot of cool stuff. So, but to do that, we need some cool textures. Now, of course, you can download textures, and if you use them within your brush and they aren't shown off too much, you won't have any problems with copyrights and things like that. But for this tutorial, I want to make something out of scratch completely. So to do that, we need to create a cool texture manually. So I'm gonna do some standard clouds and different clouds, and emboss this one. So embossing kind of makes cool, sort of like a height map out of your current texture already. And I will create another clouds, different clouds, and I will copy this and add another different clouds, and I will change the blend mode. I'm not sure which one I will use yet, because it's kind of cool if you just play around with it. You can get some really interesting effects like this. I kind of like this. So let's merge these guys and also change the blending mode of this guy on the lower layer we have. So I kind of like this already. So it's an overlay, and we've got a combination of these textures, which is a cool texture. What we want to do is we want to make sure that it's seamless. So to make sure it's seamless, we've got to make sure that the edges just go over each other seamlessly. Let's make a copy of this and go to, so first we need to know how big our image is. So my image is 2000 by 2000 pixels. We need to find the halfway point, which will be at 1000 by 1000 pixels. We go to filter, offset, and we want to go to 1000 by 1000. And then we see the edge clearly. You see, this is the edge. And we want to get rid of that edge. And we will do it by getting clone tool. Even take one of the cool brushes we just made. Here, brush, let's take brush test 1. And also add some dynamics to this, just to get some randomness in there. So now we've got our own cool clone tool 1. We need to check a layer where we start. So we'll check our place where we start, press Alt, take this one, and we'll just start brushing over this edge here. Take a different location, go here, make sure that we don't sample the edge. And the same for this side over here. So we're making a seamless tiling. It's quite seamless already, I think. To check, well, you can still see the cross in here a little bit, but to check we can do offset again. We'll get back to our original. Let's make sure that we get rid of some of the lines we may still see. We can also offset by 500, for example, to see if it's perfect. For map making as a pure pattern, I will take a little bit more time, but for the brushes, I think this is seamless enough. Yeah, this will have to do. So we can get rid of this one, copy this one, and I want to add some variations to this. So we can, for example, use a more embossed version of this one. A dirty wall, like a rough concrete wall. So we'll define pattern, call this pattern 1, and define pattern and call this pattern 2. Cool. Next up, we want to get a new brush. Maybe we can create a brush out of the underlying layer, which would be kind of cool. We'll just add a patch like this and say multiply, which should give some dark spots, and only let the light spots come through. What's wrong with this one? Oh, because of the levels, yeah. Multiply. Yeah, let's add the levels again, but make sure it's clipping masked, so it only takes the multiply layer. And we want to get those edging in there. So we can get some cool brushes out of there. I already see some shapes that I like. So for example, this shape I find interesting. There's some more shapes that I find interesting. Let's see, I kind of like this one. So let's copy this guy and paste it, invert. So this is already like almost like a blood spatter or something like that, which is pretty cool. Let's make sure that it has no sharp edges or weird edging. No, it's fine. Oh, look, there's some stuff over there. Let's get rid of those. There we go. And now we will make a brush out of this guy. So this is brush 5. And we will do the same thing as we did before. So out of the start, it doesn't look so cool. We will have to add some dynamics. Angle jitter, pen pressure, some size jitter, and it should already look pretty cool. I like this a lot. It's like I said, like blood. We can use some scattering. So what I mean with control, if you don't understand it, so can you count on 4, count jitter. So now when I make a brush, I have no idea where the details actually will come. It can be cool for big areas of texture, excuse me, but not so cool for fine details. So I will have low scatter. And now, let's add opacity jitter a little bit. And now we'll add texture, which will make things really different. So we can go to pattern 2, for example, and it works with blending modes. It works with all these settings, which I kind of know what to do, but kind of don't. It's always a surprise how it's gonna end. So it's a lot of playing around with. You can invert it to see what it does. So if we check out what this does, it's kind of cool. It's more like ink or paint. So if we go to 1%, we can add some really cool variations. I think this by itself might already be a cool brush. We can try it out on our depth layer. Oh, look at that, yeah. Yeah, I kind of like it, kind of don't. So I kind of do, actually. But this will not be our final result. We want to try some more, play around a little bit more with this texture. We can also try the other pattern that we have, which makes the lines more edgy, if you look at this. Of the pattern underneath. We can change the brightness and the contrast, the depth. So it will add a little bit of the texture, or a lot of, or not. We can add some jitter. So this will give some random effect. I like it when the edges are a little bit more sharp. So let's try this. And the whole brush can become a little bit smaller. And I kind of like it. Let's see on the depth layer, which is always a difference. I like it. It's a little bit too bubbly. So we could change that with the spacing. This is kind of cool to add some like canyons and some of those flat mountains. What do you call those? They've got those flat top mountains, or a crust of some sort. What if we remove the transfer? Then it will be. Let's remove a little bit more of the size jitter, a little bit more of the angle jitter. So now it should be quite smooth. Kind of cool. But let's play around more a little bit with the texture. So besides using different textures, you can use all kinds of you can use the standard Photoshop textures. There's some more textures within Photoshop itself, which you can use, but I like to make my own stuff, especially for this tutorial. You can also change the blending modes, which will drastically change the brush. So this, for example, looks kind of interesting to me. Yeah, I really like this. Look, these layers, the layers are really cool. The effect layers really nicely. Some really cool textures. I like it. So let's play around with the settings a little bit. This could be awesome as well. Skill doesn't do, but this I like a lot. So let's make this a new brush. So it's on linear burn. I like that. Brush 5. Awesome. I will use this in my own brushes as well. And let's copy this guy. Add it to a new layer, call it brush 5, and show off what it does. So this is the 100. %, and this is what you can do with it. Cool. Lock it, hide it. These brushes all kind of have some cool textured effects, which I really like. These are all nice for making hills and mountains and things like that, but I actually want to make a more like a dotted texture. This one is really nice. I like this brush. I want to make more of a dotted texture. So let's get back to business. And let's see what else kind of cool things we can find with our filter gallery. So we'll go to our filter gallery. I like this watercolor Let's play a little bit with the... But I'm gonna go for something else. Let's see some other things you can do, some different methods of creating brushes. I want to find this mosaic thing, or this is also nice actually, like these lines, but we're gonna go for that mosaic stained glass mosaic filter. Alright, so this is what I was looking for. What I want to do now is I want to select all the blacks. So we go to select color range, select all the blacks, and delete. Invert, and now we've got these kind of cool dots, which I like. What we also can do is select, smooth them out a little, so we get some more smoothed circular objects. Alright, let's hide this one. Inverse the selection, and let's take it from here. So copy, paste, and now we have nothing. Clipping mask, release clipping mask, yeah. So we've got this. We can maybe blur the edges out a little. Like this. And then we need to find a cool shape. Let's try this one. Remove the feather. Let's see if this works as I hope it will. It's kind of new for me as well, so let's try. The one thing that I don't like about this at the moment is that the dots they seem to be too evenly spaced. So let's move that around a little. Even delete some. So this is one way to do it. It's kind of a weird way to do it, but I'm just playing around as well a little to see what we can get. Let's define this as a brush. Brush 6. And then we'll see what it does. All right, play around with the settings a little. Space this business. Jitter the size, jitter the angle, jitter the roundness tiny bit. No scatter, pen pressure on. And let's see what this does. I like it. So this could be like pores, or on a map this could be little jungle forests, anything that needs some dotted details. Let's jitter the opacity just a tiny bit, and let's see what it does on our 3D layer. So you could imagine if this would be skin, this could be pores, right? They would have to go downwards and soften maybe a little bit, maybe even remove some of the multiply and only use the screen. So this could be like, oh, wrong layer. This could be the pores of the skin close together, so there would be, you have to have more spacing. And less a difference in size. So that would work. Just wondering why it doesn't show the highlight that much. There we go. Wrong layer again. So this is more bubbly. You can add some really fine details to areas like this. Which I like. So let's make a copy. Brush 6, 100%. Boop. 50%. Boop. 20%. Boop. And what does it do? It's almost like foam board. I kind of like it. So this is brush 6. Cool. Maybe we can do even some more with this dotted brush. Maybe we can combine it with multiple brushes or add some cool effects. Let's see. We can also see what the texture does to it. So this is height, linear height. Hard mix kind of removes some of them out, which could be interesting if you want to have a more fine version of what we already have. Kind of look like ink splatters like now, so that's kind of cool. Well, we'll edit now, brush 6. So that's kind of cool. So let's grab our awesome brush number 5. And our awesome brush number 4. just want to make a rough selection out of this. And brush it in with brush 3. So we can get some harder edges in there. Get brush 2 in there. Let's maybe add some white. To get a more interesting shape. Get brush 1 in. Get some interesting shapes in there. Go back to 6, add some dots here. Oh yeah, maybe some white dots, that could be cool. And now we've got a new brush preset, or a new brush. Let's define it. Brush 7. How does it look? Add some dynamics to it. Angle jitter, roundness jitter a little bit, size jitter, pen pressure, just like how I like it. Cool. I want to have them either closer together or more jittering. Let's try closer together. Ooh. I like it. Let's do some transfer. Where the edges are kind of cool, which makes it sound like, look like it does exactly how it sounds. It makes it look like it's a full brush with wet edges, so a little bit darker around the sides, lighter on the inside. But there's no control in there. So we could add a wet edges brush at the end, made out of the same brush, but for now I'll turn it off. Build up, I don't know what it does. Protect textures. Brush pose is like when you change the position of your pen, your tablet pen, the angle of it. Transfer, opacity a little less. Color dynamics, we're not using colors. Dual brush, it's kind of cool. It will use 2 brushes and the 2 colors from your color picker. So if you have them on black and white, it will work really well. And then you can add another one. And then you can also change like the dynamics and stuff like that. You see that it also like sometimes removes a little bit. That's because it uses both black and white. I kind of like this. But I have not enough experience with it, so I'll turn it off for now because I'm not exactly sure how it will work. We can use another pattern. See what, I think this is almost the same, yeah. Invert it. Ooh. Doesn't change much, so I'll keep that off. Maybe I'll just keep it like this for now. I will make it a tiny bit smaller. Let's see it, how it works like this on the depth layer. Oh, it's still downwards. Let's go upwards. That is pretty cool. This makes me happy. Yeah, I like that. So this is brush 7. It can be awesome as well, because then I know that I will keep it for my own. Let's copy this guy and show off what it does. And we're gonna make one more last brush. And it's gonna be crazy. I'm not sure what it will be, but I will experiment with it a lot. This is the 100, this is the 50, this is the 20, and this is what it does if you layer it up together. Brush 7. Cool. So I want to make one more crazy ass brush. Let's see. What will we do? Let's, because I want to start from scratch on this one. Our last brush must be really cool. So to start off, let's just add some weirdness. We're gonna render clouds. I like the glowing edges. So that's one of the layers we're going to combine. Let's render different clouds and change the blending mode. This might work. Merge this too. And render cloud, different clouds. Couple of times. We can maybe change the scale of this thing. This could be cool. And add some more different clouds. And let's see. Ooh. We're getting somewhere. And again, under clouds, some cool filter to put on top. Oh, this a little bit of noise. Cool. Clouds. Did you know you could also render things like flames and trees and things like that? You need to make a path for that. It's really, really cool. Now this will just make some flames. Chapow! But we won't use it for now. Filter gallery. Oh, chrome. Let's change the levels of this chrome. There we go. There we go. Just gonna make a new layer out of these underlying layers. Just by copying, merged, and pasting. So I save these other ones. So this is starting to look like a really interesting shape over here. Same for this. Almost a little bit watery. Let's add some of our own brushwork to change this appearance. Bloop, 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 bloop. Cool. We're gonna copy this, paste it, and invert. So this might be a really cool new brush. Define brush 8. There you go. Same story as before. Let's see. It looks kind of weird because it's straight out of the making. Some shape dynamics. I always like pen pressure. I like angle jitter. Roundness jitter a tiny bit. Let's see. Kind of cool. In this case, I might add scattering. Both axes, yeah. Let's see. Scatter a little less. Space a little less. Cool. We want to have some opacity jitter, definitely. We can have it quite extreme. We can have some texture. Should we? Let's see. Is this what we want? I think it is. A little less depth. It's a little less controllable now though. I want them a little bit closer together. Cool. See how it looks in our 3D layer, in our depth layer. Ooh. one thing that I don't like is the amount of opacity jitter. Turn it back. A little bit up. Nice. Right. This is 100. 20. And layered on top of each other. Brush 8th. One thing that I will do is I want to play around with one more brush that has wet edges. So let's see what this one does. Blobs. It's like blobs of clay. These wet edges. Blob, 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 blob. It's not too bad actually. Okay. Call this one brush 9. All right. Let's add our final brush. This will be it. 9. I kind of like this as well. I'm gonna call this awesome. Awesome. And let's show them off. This is 100%. Whoa, look at that. It's like a crater. That's really cool. I needed a crater. Oh, this is cool. This is cool. Crater. And yeah, I really needed a cool brush for a crater, but I accidentally created it. Haha. I like that. Okay, so 50%, 20%, and layered. I am happy with my crater, accidental crater brush. Really nice. All right, let's show them off next to each other. So this is a brushy. These are pores. Why is this one empty? Is this one empty? No. Strange. Oh, it's haha. Okay. I'm a retard. It's locked. Yes. There we go. Unlock it. also locked. Bleep. There we go, those are the cool brushes. I wanna copy these guys. Clear blending modes. So you can just see the brushes itself. And multiply. There we go, people. These are the brushes we made with just using Photoshop. So just using the things that were already in Photoshop. No outside textures, no outside brushes. So we made these brushes and we were able to cool textures and stuff like that. So it makes me really happy that we've made this. I hope you've enjoyed. If you've got any questions, you can leave them behind in the comments. You can help me out by checking my website Online-Tabletop.com or checking out my artwork on Roll20. Of course, I'm always glad if you subscribe or give me a like. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.